Like if I were to put together an outfit and say, look in the mirror, like, what am I looking to express? Like, what am I looking for in this? Who am I looking for affirmation from? And if the answer is I'm looking to get affirmation from other people, then maybe reevaluate the outfit. When I get dressed and I'm like, was this an outfit that God would like? Would he look at me and be like, yeah, like, that's my kid. She's so creative. I love that.
Hey everyone, welcome to the Catholic Link Show. We're your hosts, Drew and Katie Taylor, and we're stoked today to have Lillian Fallon on the show, who is the author of Theology of Style, a book that we got to read, talking all about theology of the body and just the beauty of style. And so we're going to dive right into it. Lily, welcome to the show.
Hey, thank you so much for having me.
So we're just going to jump in. First question, does God care about what I wear? For the record, I've never thought about more what I was going to wear for an interview than this interview right now. So I think that this is a very fitting question to kick off with.
Yes. I believe that God cares about what we wear. I think that more so he cares about how we understand our worth and how we interact in our lives and how that's reflected in what we wear. So I think he cares more so about what's happening at the core of the person, which then affects how they might dress. And so Theology of Style is really all about using style as a tool for helping us to understand our worth. So it's not really like the goal is personal style. The goal is to understand how God sees you.
Could you define personal style versus fashion? Having read the book, that was fascinating, and I just want to give that to our listeners.
Yeah. Well, I kind of came to this crossroad when I was in my 20s, and I was working in the fashion industry. I was in New York City, and I really wanted to be a part of the whole city scene. I wanted to fit in. And in doing that, I ended up just dressing like everybody else, which is so funny because you'd think in New York, you'd have diverse styles everywhere you go. And that does exist. But in New York, it's also industries that are there and people want to fit into the culture. And so I found myself wearing pretty much what everybody else was wearing. And a lot of that at the time was very trendy things, very muted tones, kind of shapeless stuff, like a lot of culottes. Do you remember culottes? That was a big thing in 2000 and oh my gosh, 2017. And so I didn't really recognize myself anymore. And I had this moment where I was walking past a window and I couldn't find myself in the crowd. I just looked like everybody else. And that was the moment that I was like, there is a big difference between fashion and style, because when I wasn't focusing on fashion magazines, when I wasn't following fashion bloggers, when I wasn't paying attention to trends, that's when my style was the most creative and expressive and fun. But when I was so obsessed with following the trends and being a part of this industry, that's when I lost my individuality in the way that I dressed. And so fashion is really an industry. It's about making money, and personal style is about the expression of the human person. And it has nothing to do with needing to buy the newest, hottest thing. And that's why I'm a thrifter. I'll be a thrifter till the day I die. Thrifting, vintage, all that kind of stuff. So really, I encourage people when they're trying to figure out how to dress, forget about the fashion magazines, the trends, the style bloggers. Just think about, what do you personally feel really drawn to and what do you really love, and express yourself, not an industry.
Yeah, so we're so fast forwarding to the last 10 pages of your book. But maybe we'll back up to give some of the foundation. But I think for our listeners, giving some of those tips, and maybe you can expand upon what you just said. As a mom of 4 who has gone through a lot of different life phases of life. And so therefore, my style has changed. I look in my closet, I can totally relate to the statement of, I have nothing to wear. And which is not true. But the reality of when somebody looks in their closet and says, I really don't like what I own, what are your recommendations, for refreshing their wardrobe in a style term?
I went through that. I also went through that when I was in my 20s in New York City. New York City was a big time for style growth for me. I did the exact same thing where I was seemingly buying stuff all the time at these stores. But then when I looked in my closet, I was like, I have nothing to wear. And a lot of the times when we're shopping fast fashion, and fast fashion is basically the trendy stores that are cheaper. So like Zara, H&M, Forever 21, even Target. Since those stores function on trends, they are recreating very statementy items that are very they're very trendy. So sometimes they look really like random, and they're very much according to that current time. And so when you have a bunch of those items in your wardrobe, they're all very mismatched, and you don't have like bright colors, patterns, but you won't have anything that's basic and neutral to go with it. So when I looked in my wardrobe, it was like, oh, I have all these random items that don't really go with each other. So what do I do? And so what I did was I just stripped it back and totally went back to basics. So I always recommend trying to build that foundational wardrobe first and foremost. It's not the most fun or glamorous when you're like, I'm going to go to the store and buy a bunch of like black long sleeve shirts and plain like regular Levi's jeans. It's not super fun and exciting, but when you're investing in the canvas of your personal style, that's when you can incorporate all of those fun prints, crazy textures. Then you can also experiment with styling things differently. That's the paint to the canvas. So get the high quality basic items in neutral tones, things that just fit you phenomenally, and things that are timeless. So not trendy. Like don't go for the trendy fits. Like for example, like a peplum top, like the ones that kind of like go right here and then they shoot out. That was like so trendy when we were like in high school. That's an example of something that's not really timeless. But say like a plain turtleneck, a plain black turtleneck, you will wear that for the next 10 years if you invest in a nice high quality one. So I definitely recommend just going back to basics. And then as you change in your life and go through different seasons, it's so much easier to incorporate those more what I call statement items onto that. And then those things can kind of uniquely express whatever stage you're going through. And personal style is such a journey. It's not a destination, and it's going to change with you. And, it's fun that way too. It's like, you don't have to take it so seriously. Things are in flux, just like we are.
Yeah. One of the things that I really appreciated about the book was how in-depth you went with theology of the body, because theology of the body was something that was part of my conversion. And when I heard the words that John Paul II was speaking, it was something that was so radical. And it was something that I hadn't heard in society, in the culture. Like it was just taking a breath of fresh air. It's like I'd been eating garbage and all of a sudden someone just handed me a filet mignon and I was like, what is this? It's wrapped in bacon. It's amazing. And so as when I think about, the anthropology of a person or how we are made up, right? We are a body and a soul together. But what I thought was really cool is as you were talking about that, you were saying, yeah, we're a body and a soul, but we're also clothes, because like when you meet someone, it's not just body soul, right? Like they are wearing something. So it was really cool. I thought it was really encouraging as we read the book, because I think part of our faith is to kind of strip a lot of the materialism of our society, which there is a very healthy part of being able to do that, because we are a very materialistic society. But in many ways, right, we're not called to, a lot of us are in the world as we're married, working jobs, we're not called to be Franciscans, wearing sackcloth, right? Like we have to dress in business attire to go to work or whatever that looks like. And so I thought it was just beautiful that you were kind of not throwing the baby out with the bathwater and saying like, no, this is part of expressing who you are. And there's a goodness to that. There is a beauty to that. So I don't know. Can you talk more about that for our listeners?
Definitely. I struggled my whole high school experience with that. How does my love for fashion make sense with my love for my faith? Are these two things that just don't mix? And I have to forego my superficial passion for fashion. And I went through a phase where I was like, well, I got to be serious and I'm going to pursue a serious career in journalism and be on Capitol Hill. And that was misery for me. I was not happy with that. But it was when I was in Theology of the Body that the materialism of the body was explained as something that was united with the soul and something that was not bad. And a lot of the times as Catholics, we don't realize that our American culture has a lot of heavy Puritan influence where the body is viewed as something that is bad and that it is the focus is on the temptation and the focus is on how can your body be a detriment to your salvation. And St. John Paul II explains it as like, no, your body is a part of your salvation. Your body is a part of it's who you are. Like your body is who you are too. And that to me was just the aha moment. I was like, oh, so my body isn't bad. And when I wear things that are materialistic and it's drawing attention to the materialism of my body, it's not bad because my body is dignified. My body is good. And my body is also made in the image of God. And because my body manifests my soul, then the things that I put on my body can be this incredible opportunity to make visible the invisible. And that was in that class and in the Theology of the Body, that was like like lightning strikes down and there's a spotlight on me in the class. And I'm like, oh, is that you? God was like, yeah. And the quote is that the body and only the body can make visible the invisible, the spiritual and the divine. And so suddenly I saw that the things that I put on my body was this chance to make visible the invisible beauty of my soul, because our bodies are communicating who we are to people all the time. And when people are like, I don't know, like, is it really important? Like clothing, shouldn't we just like walk around and not care about how we look? But I say to people, but what about smiling? What about tears? These are manifestations, physical, tangible manifestations of the interior self that allows other people to encounter who we are as individuals made in the image of God. So the things that we wear are also communicating to people so much, and it's this opportunity to let people know and to tell them who you are made in the image of God. The opportunity to make visible the invisible. And that's Catholicism too. Like we think about sacramentality, the material and the divine come together constantly throughout Catholicism. Like, hello, the incarnation, the Eucharist, like it's literally our faith, like the material and the divine. So it's important we have to regard the physical and then allow that to be an expression of the good and the beautiful. So I spent like the first chunk of my book being like, this is legit. Personal style is a legit thing. Psychologists talk about it. St. John Paul II totally would have been on board. So that was kind of like the first half of the book where I was like, I promise legit, let me explain.
I think I really enjoyed that, and it flipped my view of fashion. You know, like it was fashion versus style, and that like breaking that apart of, because there is this temptation of like, well, I'm just out of step with fashion and like I need to get back in it or like look at things. And yet like your call to say like, no, It's an expression of your soul. And that like isn't to be influenced by whatever designers are putting out today. That's an influence of like who you are called to express. And I loved the tie-in with John Paul II's letter to artists, which is just such a beautiful gift in a church that in a world and a culture currently that says maybe like art is like far crazy, and like bringing it back of like, no, like this is a gift of God. And like we can use this to express beauty, which is truth, goodness, and beauty. That is, and I think your points on materialism, oh, there's so many places I want to go, but like the reality that the Lord cares so much about our bodies that they will be resurrected. And they will go. And so like there is like, and that is how God in his mercy also communicates with us, is in that tangible, in that feeling. And like that reality of how the sacraments are received to us, because the Lord wants to give us the material expression because we are body and soul. And that like, all of it. There's so much. I do want to touch on maybe just like bluntly stating this. Is it sinful to care this much about materialism? Is there like a danger of vanity? Where and how do we protect ourselves and yet express ourselves?
Yes. Yeah. And I think touching on what you just said about beauty and how beauty is very highly regarded in the church. If we think about our cathedrals, those are things that call us to contemplate the divine. And really, the beauty that we encounter around us, physical beauty, is a bridge between the divine and our world. So it's really important to foster beauty in our everyday lives, including how we dress, because it is something that calls us to contemplate the divine. It's a bridge. So when it comes to the question of vanity and being materialistic, those were definitely all things that I grappled a lot with when I was a teenager. And I think that, so vanity is really just like an obsession with your appearance. And it can go the like other way too. Father Mike Schmitz has a great video on Ascension Presents about this, where he says that you can be obsessed about how you look to the point of just like not caring, like making an effort to like look really dowdy, or making an effort to just like kind of blend into the background, or just try and diminish who you are physically. And so it's really just an obsession with how you look. And it can be a slippery slope. And that's usually when we start to put our worth and value in how we look. And so for me, what I try to do is I say, how do we care less without being careless about how we dress? And again, that's kind of where I'm like, all right, cut out the magazines, cut out the bloggers, like forget that. And the goal is not to look perfect when it comes to style. Because I think that sometimes even in Catholic fashion circles, there's this pressure to feel like, okay, I need every day to wake up and have the most like bomb outfit. And I need to really communicate and express my worth, or else that means that like I'm failing as a woman. And I think that trying to find that balance of like caring about upholding the dignity of your body, but also knowing that you have worth no matter how you look, knowing that you have worth when you're in your sweats, or like the same amount of worth when you're in your sweats, or when you're in your like most awesome outfit. For me, when I left New York, that was such a crazy time in my life, because I was stripped of everything that I thought made up my value and my worth, because I lived this like cool, glamorous lifestyle in New York. The magazine I worked at like laid off everybody. And I found myself back in Pennsylvania, my parents. And I was like, well, I'm not going to like be going out to parties. So I'm just like wearing my sweats. And I really came to this crossroads of being like, where does my worth and value come from if I'm not stylish, cool girl like New York City Lilly, when I don't have any of those things, and I'm chilling in the Walmart parking lot in my sweats, waiting to go get a frozen pizza in a Red Box? Like, And honestly, sitting in that kind of rawness, just like really raw, like basic, plain Lily, I had to commit to my worth and my value, because I was like, I have worth no matter how I look. And so I would kind of force myself to go out in the, like, not the most like stylish outfits. I'd be like, all right, I'm going to go out in sweats. Okay, let's do it. I'm going to commit to the fact that I have worth no matter how I look. And it helped me to let go of that obsession with how I appear to other people. It helped me to let go of thinking that my value comes from how I look. So I always try and emphasize, when somebody's trying to develop their style, it's like, don't take it so seriously in the arena of thinking that you have to look perfect, because God loves us when we're like not. God loves us totally in our imperfect selves. We're flawed people. So yeah, try to have fun with your style, dignify your body, and express the beauty of your soul, but have fun. Don't be so serious about it. Yeah.
Ah, yes. I think all of that is so important, as virtue lies in the middle, and the like temptation we have to these extremes in our emotions and our vanity and our all of it. And I love the phrase, I want you to care less, but not be careless. And that like is such a good point. I didn't know that I was necessarily going to go here, but the book was so good on this. And I kind of want to talk about like a right Catholic style, but also our like temptation with the modesty. And we talked a little bit about our culture's like influences, but growing up, I grew up with very little modesty. And as a result, trying to figure out like where that needs to go appropriately, but not overswing on the expectations, or how I'm raising my own 3 daughters. And my son, it's less of a thing, but which is a problem right there. But thoughts on, right Catholic style, maybe touching into modesty, or too much modesty, hyper modesty, which is a really cool concept to talk about.
Yeah. Well, so I grew up, it's funny because my sister, my oldest sister, was very much involved in the Latin Mass community. And so I started kind of going to the different masses and the dances and stuff. And so that was more my experience when it came to more of like the hyper modesty. And I think that sometimes within those circles, there's more emphasis on modesty. And exactly as you said, virtue is in the middle. And what I found oftentimes with people who were so hyper focused on modesty, and with insane, like just really like intense rules that kind of make you wonder, like, are we sexualizing body parts that aren't even like inherently sexual? Like, we're talking about like a knee here, like it's a, or a shoulder, like, are we just so basically in the book I talk about how the extremes of hypermodesty and extreme immodesty are two sides of the same coin, where the hypermodesty says, hey, your body is an object for consumption, so hide it. And then the hyper immodesty says your body is for consumption, so use it. So it's like, how do we talk to young girls about the goodness of their bodies and their sexuality without bringing in all of this negative, like kind of preaching the same message as the culture does? So yeah, my book, that section was one that I kind of was like geared up, ready to write. And I was like, oh, this is going to be the hard chapter here. And so yeah, yeah, it was a good chapter. And I think that God wanted me to write that one, especially. And kind of what I get at in it is that we have to do the work on the front end of talking to young girls. Because sometimes, or most of the time, when we're talking about how women dress, especially in the Catholic Church, the first thing people say is, oh, modesty. Like, oh yeah, like modesty, which modesty is important. And I didn't want to lose that in the book, where I was like, I didn't want to not address it because it is important. But sometimes it feels like the only conversation happening about the way that we dress has to do with modesty or immodesty. And if we talk to our girls about their value and worth, and we explain to them the anthropology of their body, and we explain to them the beauty of their femininity and how that is such a precious gift, and all the examples in the church of femininity being upheld, and Theology of the Body really does talk about women and the special role that we play. And if we talk about that first with our young girls, dressing modestly will come from that. It'll pour out from that knowledge. And it won't be something where they're standing in front of a mirror with like a tape measure and they're like, well, all right, I guess like I can go out in this because it's covering this amount of inches. Modesty is about balance. It's about environment. It's about so many different, it's about intention. It's about so many different things. So yeah.
I actually want to work this out, because I think this would be an amazing takeaway from this video. So our girls are young right now, so this probably won't happen for a few years. But let's say that our girls grow up and one of them comes down the stairs and they're ready to go out with their friends, and I look at them and go, you just kind of have that dad, like, you really going to go out in that? But instead of shaming them or taking out the tape measure, I would be willing to bet that there is a question that we should be asking ourselves about style. And I don't know what that is, so I want to tease it out right now, but something along the lines of like, does this express the beauty and goodness of your soul? Or I don't know, like if there's like one question, one punchline, like, why are we dressing modestly? Why is that important? And what should we be focusing on instead of like, getting the tape measure out?
Yeah.
What do you think?
I talk in the book a bit. I kind of go through like a list of questions that we can ask ourselves when, we're getting dressed. Cause for me all the time, I still struggle with it. Like I'm 31 years old. I'm going on 32. Sometimes if I'm feeling like a little bit insecure and I'm like, I kind of want to like feel better about how I look. Like maybe I'll wear this. And like some guys will be like, hey, like, and then I'll like get this like brief feeling of like, yeah, like I have confidence, like thanks. But that's so fleeting. And so in my book, I go through questions to ask yourself, to like check yourself. Like, what am I really looking for in dressing like this? What is my intention in wearing this? What am I really trying to get from wearing this? Is this going to fill the void that I feel? Does anybody have the right to use me in their minds? Is confidence that comes from the affirmation and attention of other people really something that's going to make up my like vision of myself? Like, is that real confidence? If confidence is coming from random strangers who only value me for my appearance, is the confidence that I get from that real? Are they really seeing me as a whole person, or are they only seeing me for my body? Does anybody have any right to see me in my body this way? So yeah, in my book, it's very much like, how do I check within myself? Like, what am I looking for in this? And I think that if we ask ourselves that question when we get dressed, like if I were to put together an outfit and say, look in the mirror, like, what am I looking to express? Like, what am I looking for in this? Who am I looking to get affirmation from? And if the answer is I'm looking to get affirmation from other people, then maybe reevaluate that outfit. Or if the goal is to get affirmation from God, or the goal is to get, like, I don't know. Okay, I think of when I get dressed and I'm like, was this an outfit that God would like? Like, I put together something cute and creative and fun and like something that I think really accurately represents me as his child, would he look at me and be like, yeah, like, that's my kid. She's so creative. I love that.
Oh yeah. Small story. So yesterday we're like gonna meet somebody for the first time, and like, I'm getting all the kids dressed, and I like send my 4-year-old off to dress herself. And just like seeing what she came back with, and as a mom, like nothing was wrong with what she had on. It's not what I would match together, but it's like so her, including like St. Patty's like hair clips and this like striped and lemon dress on top, that's like navy blue, yellow, and teal, like, like on pants. And you're like, okay, that is so you. And like, I love that. And therefore, like, I'm not going to tell you to turn around and go put on something that I think is more acceptable or like makes us look more put together as a crazy Catholic family. But like, that is your style, and allowing her to express herself in that way, because she has her own style. But I really liked the term for modesty to reverence. And the idea of reverence also, to me, may allow, like, we have also reverence for the Mass. And so like the way we dress at Mass is different than how we dress at the gym. And therefore, like, it is okay. It's not necessarily out of a modesty of like, you need to be covered from your head to your toe and like this, like, let's shove away your bad body. Like, it's like, let's dress in a way that is special for this special event, this wedding feast, incarnation of our Lord here on the altar. Like, okay, we get to dress in a slightly different way, and that's not bad, to also call us to that level. And so I think there's, again, different circumstances, the surrounding, the variables matter. I did want to ask you advice that you would want to give to a younger self, maybe 22, maybe younger, diving out into fashion.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Okay. What would I tell myself? I'd say stop trying to change yourself for the boys in your life. And I say this to any girl who is listening. Don't change yourself to look a certain way for the boys that you like. I went through plenty of phases where I like stopped eating because I thought that, well, if I was skinny enough, then like they would have to like me. And if I'm super tan and I'm super blonde, then they can't say no, because like, of course, it does not work. Don't change, don't harm yourself, don't harm your dignity for the sake of attention and affirmation from men, because you don't want that type of affirmation anyway. And then I would also tell myself, stop looking for affirmation from the world. Stop looking for approval from industries. Stop feeling like you need to prove yourself. You don't need to prove yourself to any industry that you want to work in. You don't need to prove yourself, your value, I mean. You don't need to prove your value or your worth as a human being to the culture. You don't need to prove your value or worth to any boy that you're involved with. Your worth is unchanging and inherent to you. So live in a way that is expressing that truth.
I like that.
That's beautiful.
That's beautiful. All right, last question before we hit the lightning round. What do you hope would be the biggest takeaway that someone would get from your book? Like when you were writing this, you're sitting there just typing away, maybe on typewriter. I don't know how people write books these days. That's what I imagine. Yeah. It's right. Yeah.
Yes.
What did you have in mind if you were like, man, I just wish that they would take away this? What would that be?
That they are wanted and desired for eternity. The biggest takeaway, I think so there's the JP2 quote that says, the human person is someone called and named. Wow, I'm like messing up like I'm messing up the big line. The human person is called and identified by name from all eternity, I think it was. I don't know how I'm forgetting this quote, but it's basically the human person has been thought of from the beginning and desired for eternity. The human person is unrepeatable. So we get so caught up in existing in this culture that wants us all to essentially be the same and to just assimilate and to conform. And in trying to fit in with the culture and the world, we lose that sense of individuality and uniqueness. And I just want every single girl and woman to know how unrepeatable they are. There's nobody else who is like them. There's no one else who has ever existed before who's like them. There's no one who's ever going to exist after. And they are so utterly irreplaceable in the heart of God, and that no one can take their place in heaven. That is how much of an individual that they are. And that if in the crucifixion, even if it was just them on this earth, like Christ still would have died for them individually. We have been in the mind of God from the beginning, and he created the galaxies and the oceans and the planets. Everything that we see is beautiful, but he wanted you to exist for forever. The planets, the trees, the stars, those things are all going to pass. They're by, but you are called to exist with him forever. The creator of the universe wants you for forever. So that's what I want women to know when they're reading this, because that's what gets me through my existing as a woman in this culture, in this day and age, where comparison and feeling like we're not good enough constantly. Knowing that he has thought of me from the beginning of time and wants me specifically to be with him for eternity. That's my hope for anyone who reads my book.
I love hearing your heart. That was a beautiful gift for all those that are listening to even just hear that desire from you as an author. So thank you. Thank you for how you have written this and prayed for these women who get to read this.
Yeah. I would just encourage our listeners to pause for a second and just chew on that. Just let that sink in a little bit, because that was beautiful. And then we'll get to our lightning round. All right, here we go. All right, lightning round number 1. Who is your favorite saint?
St. John Paul II.
That's obvious. What is your favorite devotion?
Well, I really love the St. Joseph the Worker Novena. Have you guys ever done that? It's
I don't know if I've done the St. Joseph the Worker Novena.
Yeah. There's so many St. Joseph novenas we've done, so I'm okay.
Okay,
we're going to look it up. What do you like about it?
Yeah.
He works miracles. Anytime I've ever done the St. Joseph the Worker Novena, asking for a new opportunity, work, anything, he always follows through. Sometimes it's not in the way that I think. But I'm always answered in some way. So an incredibly powerful novena, and I highly recommend everybody do it when they're struggling, especially when it comes to their future, work, looking for direction in life. That's the one.
I will put a link down below.
Yes, do it.
All right. Other than Theology of Style, which I really recommend for everyone, what is your favorite book recommendation?
Theology of the Body.
Yeah.
I really love Theology of the Body. And Alice von Hildebrand's The Privilege of Being a Woman. Definitely do that. I talk a lot about her in my book, and just how she talks about women is really powerful. And I think every girl needs to hear about what a gift it is to be a woman, and just really live in that truth.
Yeah. What are your favorite places to shop?
I love shopping on Etsy for vintage stuff. So I'll search specific things. Lately I've been searching for vintage riding boots. So the very kind of English countryside, type of riding boots. Not sure how comfortable they're going to be, but some more riding boots. I kind of have a pair already. Or if I'm like, I want a tassel-y, fringy jacket, you can really narrow down your search on Etsy. And then other than that, I just scour vintage shops in my area or the thrift store. So yeah.
Nice. I did not know you could shop like that on Etsy. Yeah. Very cool.
Oh yeah, I have a fringe jacket I'm looking at right now. Etsy.
Nice.
I have two fringe jackets actually. There's a black one there and a tan brown suede one there.
Nice.
So lastly, Lily, where can our listeners go to learn more about you?
They can head on over to my Instagram, Lillian_Fallon, or they can search me on YouTube because I have Ascension Presents videos and I talk about all of this in a lot of depth. So I talk about the whole modesty thing, like how do we approach modesty in a healthy way? How do we have a new conversation about modesty? I talk about the significance of personal style. And then I also have some dating stuff on there because your girl is a single young lady and I'm in the dating scene. So I talk a lot about dating advice too.
Good.
That is good.
Good. We need that as a culture.
Well, Lily, thank you so much for coming on the show. This was really special. For our listeners, please comment below or on our podcast. Leave a comment. Let us know what you got out of this. We love hearing from you guys. We love hearing that this is helping people. And so let us know. Check out Lily's new book, Theology of Style, on Ascension Press. We'll link to that in the description. And just know that we are praying for you so much. We appreciate your time. We thank you for joining us. And we just pray that the Lord blesses you and keeps you. Until next time, God bless.
Thanks for listening, guys.